Hello students, and welcome to yet another in a series of video lectures. Today we're going to spend some time talking about group work and theoretical perspectives. Group work, as you will find, is very hands-on, very challenging, but very rewarding in terms of a learning activity. As social workers, you will find yourself over the course of your career utilizing these skill sets often, again, and again. So it's very important to understand some of the theoretical underpinnings as well as some of the types and techniques that we'll be exploring in our lesson today. So join with me as we walk through this video series, and as always, make sure that you do your readings and you come to class prepared. Groups are everywhere. Everyone you know, most people you come in contact with in some form or fashion, are members of a group. We all are. We are social animals. We have been socialized to work together and to be together. And so groups form naturally as a result of that. A little bit about the history of group work. It originated in England and the United States. Was primarily used in the settlement houses in the early days of social work around the early 1900s. The focus was and still continues to be the promotion of individual well-being through acceptance, companionship, and the promoting of the democratic participation, as well as social justice and solidarity. So when we think about history, we think about this phenomenon having been around for a while in terms of a form of treatment that we in the social work field use. Groups primarily fallen into a couple of different categories. So we're looking at groups that are formed and groups that are natural. And so when you think about formed, it's just as it says, it's formed. So it's folks coming together because of outside influences or various interventions, and they have a purpose. They're there for a reason, and we're trying to get some work done. So therapy groups, social action groups, and committees that you might be a part of are actually formed groups that you will be a part of. As a matter of fact, when you did your assignment in other classes where you were broken into groups of three, you were a formed group, and you were a group that was together for a designated period of time for a specific task. Natural groups, on the other hand, are spontaneous and naturally occurring. They often occur around events, around interpersonal attractions, around those mutually perceived needs. So families, if you're part of families, those are naturally occurring groups. Cliques, peers, street gangs, all of those are natural groups. Groups also fall into two different typologies. They are either task groups or treatment groups. Task groups are primarily put together to look at meeting client needs, meeting organizational needs, or meeting community needs. So when you think about board of directors or committees that come together, or city councils, even if we even think about our Congress at the United States level as well as at the state level, they're basically a large task group that are charged to look at community needs. When we think about treatment groups, we think about groups that are really designed to look at providing support, education, growth therapy, and socialization and self-help for its actual participants. So these are the two major types of work that groups are designed to actually do. Here's some examples of task groups. Here's some examples of treatment groups. Again, as we talked about, the need for support, education, growth therapy, socialization, and self-help. And beside each of these particular words, you have examples of what some of these treatment groups will look like. So folks who have been diagnosed with cancer, can form a group to look at learning about the disease, learning about how to take care of themselves, as well as mutual support. And so as you can see, the other examples, socialization, for example, involves Girl Scouts, VFW clubs, Boy Scouts, things of that particular nature. Self-help can be Shoplifters Anonymous as well as Narcotics Anonymous. So again, when we look at treatment groups, they're designed to really look at working to resolve some of those types of issues. This is an important concept to grasp and recognize what group work is and what it's intended to actually do. The individual members of the group are the targets of intervention, as well as the entire group are the targets of intervention within that service delivery system. So keep those kinds of things in mind. Throughout this course, you will look at and work and become very familiar with the 6 developmental stages of group. Your planning, beginning, assessment, middle, end, ending, and evaluation. So we will walk you through those pieces so you'll be thoroughly prepared as you look at some further class activities that will require you to actually construct and plan and propose groups and run them in the community, as well as it'll prepare you for your internships where you may be in situations where you will also need to be and expected to run group settings. Some of the theories that actually give rise to these particular models and types of work that we do in groups are all listed here, and there are 6 major ones that we take a look at. We have systems theory, we have psychodynamic theory, and learning theory. And you can see there's a small caption that talks about kind of the basics for those particular modes of thinking as it relates to how it impacts the social work groups that we actually run now. So there's much more information in your actual text that I would encourage you to read about each of these particular theories, which gives you some background about the work that they do and the methodologies that they actually utilize in terms of working with our clientele. As I had indicated, there were 6, and these are the other 3, the narrative social exchange theory, as well as the field theory. So again, pay attention and look at your readings to make sure that you have some background and some understanding about these particular theories and how they then impact the work that we do in the groups that we construct and run. There are also 3 models of social work group. And when we think about models, thinking about the social goals group. And so when we think about social goals, the social goal model, it's about social consciousness and responsibility. And so the Girl Scouts, the Boy Scouts would be examples of social goal groups or using that particular model. The remedial model looks at really restoring and rehabilitating members who have been behaving dysfunctionally. So if I've been involved in shoplifting, or if I've been involved in chemical use and it has impaired my ability to function regularly in society, then this particular model or group model looks at actually preparing and doing support and education and training around resolving some of those dysfunctional behaviors. The reciprocal model is a mutual aid model that really looks at socialization and adaptation. So looking at being able to give back. And so, if I'm a person who has been recently divorced and I'm struggling with that particular notion, finding a support group of folks that deal with divorce issues could be a model where I could actually share and learn information about what the journey entails, as well as I could give some aid and support and feedback to those who may also have some different perspectives around being divorced. So these are the models, and all of the groups that we talk about or that you'll experience fit into these models in some form or fashion. Finally, we need to talk about advantages and disadvantages of group work. There are clearly advantages from an economic standpoint. If we think about a treatment group that can provide service for 15 individuals as opposed to a counselor meeting with a client in an office one-to-one, it's much more cost effective to look at a group dynamic. And it also has some other features and advantages in terms of vicarious learning, some solidarity, recognizing that you're not alone in this particular struggle that you might be having. It's a source of hope, and you can get feedback from other members of that particular group. By the same token, there are distinct disadvantages to the group process as well. And some of those disadvantages are around confidentiality. Typically, groups have very strict rules about information being shared, but outside of the group, is there any real way to be certain that your confidence is not being betrayed in terms of other group members sharing things without your knowledge? So that's just kind of a naturally occurring piece that's built in. The whole notion of scapegoating also is problematic in that groups can sometimes turn their attention to the person who may exhibit the most issues or the most problems and actually spend their time focusing on that person's behavior and not addressing their own. And then it's also, it creates some vulnerability about people being in a place where they self-disclose and not sure what people are going to do with that information. And then finally, the folks who are talkative and more assertive may actually have more time and may get more attention than folks who are actually more introverted and actually more quiet. So those are some of the disadvantages of the group process that you need to be aware of. So this pretty much brings to a close the things that I wanted to share with you as it relates to your readings for this particular week and the work that you will need to do. So you'll also find in your shell that there are observations, points, and counterpoints that we would like you to review and to be familiar with, so when we do our review in class that you will be up to speed. So I thank you again for your time and attention. Make sure that you do your readings and use the videos as ways to enhance that, and be prepared to come to class and participate in our in-class activities. Thank you all, and have a good day.